Okay. Call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Board of Supervisors may, by motion, recess into executive session to receive legal advice from the board's attorney on any item contained in this agenda pursuant to the Arizona Revised Statutes. We have one item to come before the board. Item number 1, brought to us from Supervisor Buster Johnson, District Number 3. Supervisor Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the board members taking this emergency meeting on such short notice. I thought that we might have till Wednesday before the legislature passed the bill, but they pushed it through, so made some small changes if the board agrees with them. And just as a way of background, I'd obviously like to applaud the governor and state legislatures for trying to combat the drug addiction and abuse problems we face in the state. I feel this package of bills, though, passed through last night by our state legislatures, focus more on prescription drug side of the opioids and doesn't do enough to focus on the real problem, the illegal drugs. Statistics from the CDC show the number one problem with opioids right now is synthetic ones, and the number 2 issue is heroin overdoses. We may well be on a very slippery slope we often try to avoid. There's a certain red herring in our midst, and we may be on the trail of the wrong suspect, leading to a solution that harms the very people having the greatest needs, those suffering from day-to-day chronic pain. Government always needs to be extremely careful for setting precedents on any issue and not articulate in a rush to judgment. The other day, it was pointed out that 100 people have died due to opioid-related deaths in Mohave, Pinal, and Yavapai over the past 6 months. I find this not to be true, or if it is true, Mohave County wasn't a big contributor to this. There was only 14 deaths that occurred, and in the last 6 months, the number of deaths from opioids have actually decreased over 50% in Mohave County. The Arizona Department of Health Sciences suspects that opioid overdoses killed 812 people in the state last year, and 5,202 Arizonans suffered a suspected overdose in 2017. I'm not sure what suspected means, but these aren't fine numbers they're giving us. These numbers are not 100% accurate because of these deaths could have occurred from some other underlying medical condition. You see, more critical and focused research needs to be done on this vital issue before we go off and pass significant laws that will have long-term lasting effects on Arizona citizens who have legitimate personal medical conditions that require treatment. These laws will also impact the dedicated physicians who care for these patients and their daily quality of life. In looking over the package of bills, number 1 concern I have is access to rural care. In Mohave County, there are 4 pain management clinics. The statistics keep saying that there's only a handful of doctors in some rural counties are prescribing pain medicine, so therefore they are overprescribing. Well, there are only a handful of pain management specialists. This set of bills would continue to prohibit certain doctors from prescribing pain medication, forcing more and more folks right into those few pain management clinics, which will make the stats rise even farther. This law will require pain management clinics to have the same licensing requirements as healthcare institutes. Has research been done on how this will affect Arizona rural counties? With access to pain clinics already scarce in smaller counties, more requirements could force some clinics to simply close up shop. We shouldn't be making it harder for Mrs. Jones, who is 80 years old and has 2 broken discs in her back, to get the treatment. She needs to live a somewhat decent life day to day. Her pain must be addressed, and we shouldn't be passing laws that restrict her access to care, forcing doctors who care about her quality of life to become more and more hesitant in giving her an opioid prescription because they may lose their license. An independent review by Cochrane Research Team found that only 1% of opioid pain recipients abuse the drugs who do not have a history of drug addiction, and 10% of those who have had a past history. We are putting more restrictions on law-abiding citizens, requiring them to go to their doctor every month to get a prescription that costs close to $100, or for an uninsured or underinsured individual with drug addiction, now they go down the street to get a bag of heroin for half that cost and without all the hassle. Are there doctors who overprescribe? Sure. That's more than probable, but the majority do not and are only trying to do what is best for their patients. Their patients are our citizens, and we need to do right by them. Restricting their ability to acquire the medication they need is a penalty on the innocent. We are reacting to the media-driven hailstorm on the issue when the severity of the problem may be far less than we are hearing, and the solution is more damning than helpful, and potentially legislation could be totally wrong-headed. We need to think before we act. We need to explore this much further with complex research carried out by professionals, not fast-tracking legislation enacted without regard to those we serve. Illicit drugs put the real issue here, not legally prescribed pain medications. We need to get to the root of the overdoses, the real causes and effects. Let's take the time to get it right. Fast legislation on complex issues is not necessarily an accomplishment. By restricting legal prescription drugs with new legislation, we'll be on the road to creating a new path to the only available alternative for the pain and suffering: more potent illegal drugs direct from the street, or a life of pain. Some things that I brought up, like when we were talking about pain management clinic in Lake Havasu, there's some of them that won't take certain insurances, so people are having to drive to Fort Mohave or Bullhead City for their pain management. Now, it's, depending on how you drive, could be an hour, hour and a half drive each way, and they're spending hours in the clinics because there's so many people there. Especially with the older generation who've, the people that have the chronic pain that they've gotten. Now they have to go in and see a doctor personally to get a refill. Well, when you have, say, an older couple and a married couple, and say the husband is the one that needs the pain medication, sometimes it's hard to get him in and out of a car and have the time to drive him down, and the people are so stressed out when you're just trying to take care of a loved one in that situation that it makes it real hard. Access in rural counties is limited. In Mohave County, for example, we have the 4 pain. These statistics keep only a handful of doctors, and some rural are prescribing. Another thing that I found interesting of the pain pills that were prescribed in Mohave County alone, the 75% of the pills they're talking about were prescribed to AARP people. And I don't see the sheriff or the chief of police raiding our senior centers because these people are abusing their pain medication. And if you drop that down to the 45 and older, it's 82%. So it's not the people that are getting the pills that are the problem. And when we talk about this problem, just yesterday, Mexican police found a multi-drug shipment that included an astonishing 100 pounds of synthetic opioid, fentanyl, in a vehicle near the city of Ensenada. Now, fentanyl can be fatal in doses of just a few milligrams. To put the size of the haul in perspective, a seizure last year of 4.5 pounds of fentanyl in Columbus, Ohio, was said by prosecutors to be enough to potentially kill the entire population of the city, 860,000 people. So this load would kill 19 million people. And this is illegal drugs. Police in Mexico said the drug shipment seized near Ensenada also included 914 pounds of meth, 88 pounds of cocaine, and 18.5 pounds of heroin. And as we've all seen, drugs cycle through. It used to be meth was the big drug we were all worried about, and then we kind of went to cocaine, and now it's heroin, but now they're throwing opioids in. But I think I applaud the state legislature for, wanting to look at this issue, but I think the issue is the illegal part, not the opioids. When I checked with the coroner's office, because they always want to quote these overdoses. Those are the younger people that are overdosing. It's not the older people, and it's also I won't say poverty-driven, but the lower income people are the ones that are going to the heroin because it's cheap. So that's kind of why I brought it up, just to say if we could encourage the legislature that's not going into effect till 19. I had another thing that really bothered me, if I could find my slips here. Okay, a Department of Health report from 2016 shows that heroin deaths have tripled since 2012, a much faster growing rate than the overdose deaths from prescription pain pills such as Oxycontin and Vicodin. Department of Health data suggests that heroin death rates are higher among teens and young adults. Under the new law, it seems that a pet owner who has an animal with a chronic condition will have to see his or her veterinarian monthly to get their pet's meds refilled if they are taking a Schedule II drug. And vet bills are not cheap. Many dog owners who care a great deal about their animals are low-income wage workers, and this will impact them a great deal. I don't know if any research has been done on the cost of how this will affect pet owners and turn into more overcrowding in our local animal shelters. The law also will require new red caps be placed on medicine bottles for Schedule II drugs. The red caps will put a stigma on people getting prescriptions. Food stamp recipients switch to credit cards from paper food stamps to avoid the stigma, but if this passes, when someone goes to pick up a prescription, everyone is going to know they're receiving an opioid. It could be dangerous for our elderly. If people see somebody with a red top bottle, they could rob them or knock them out in the parking lot or follow them home. The new law will require Mohave County to go to electronic prescriptions for all Schedule II drugs. Has there been any cost analysis of how much this will cost the pharmacies? We have a lot of small mom and pop pharmacies, and some of our towns are in rural areas, and driving to a major pharmacy could be a good 30 minutes. If this passes, will they have the resources or the money to implement this, or will they just have to stop filling Schedule II drugs? The significant new law has passed the legislature. There's not enough time to think about all the ramifications. I guess the other thing that bothers me too is, does the state legislature even have the authority to tell a doctor what he can prescribe to his patient? I mean, this person has gone through, 6 years, residency, all those sorts of things, and they take the Hippocratic Oath and, all those things they want to do, and I don't know that it's legal. I just think that, everybody I've talked to, except one person who didn't really have an opinion, had concerns about this, and I think that somebody needs to, let them know that, especially in the rural counties, worried about it. I mean, it's our older people. We all get old and we all start hurting, and I don't see people suffering because they can't get their pain medicine or get to the doctor. That was all. I kind of went long on it, but I appreciate you taking the time to listen to me.
Well, thank you, Supervisor Johnson, for your input on this, your proposed resolution. Supervisor Bishop, do you have anything you'd like to say?
I spoke with our Senator Sonny Borelli last night, and he said that this passed unanimously out of the House and also out of the Senate with only 2 missing representatives that were absent. So it's got really strong support at the Capitol, and of course it's being pushed by the governor, and I think it is being pushed rather fast because it's considered an opiate crisis is what it's being called. But I also read some information that this was a crisis several years back. They just called it something different, and now it's come back again. So Senator Borelli stated that they made some amendments late yesterday, and he seems to think that any other adjustments that need to be made can be made as it goes along. So that tells me that it was rushed a little bit. I don't disagree with your comments, Supervisor Johnson. I just don't know if it's going to do any good because it's already passed and probably be signed by the governor before we can even get a resolution or a written statement to the governor. So I'm not too sure how effective this would be, if any. And I'm not sure if a resolution would be the way to go or maybe just a letter to the governor.
Right, I think, from what I understand, I'm not sure if he did or not, the governor was supposed to sign the bill at 11 today. And that's why the new resolution kind of says, we as Mohave County Board of Supervisors would like the legislature and the governor to take a stronger look at this because it, like you're saying, they claim it's an emergency, but it doesn't take effect till 2019. So to show them that, yes, there are people out there that think, a better look at this. The bill was given to them Monday night. Nobody had seen it before Monday night. And it's a lengthy bill, and it was passed, like last night. So there really wasn't much time for the public had no input really into it. And I've seen where they've said in the paper, there was 50 public hearings. The bill was just handed in Monday night, so there wasn't 50 public hearings on the opioid issues. So I just thought that I think somebody needs to stand up for the people because right now the doctors, when you leave say surgery, they can give you 5 days worth of prescriptions, Then you have to go back into the doctor. Well, usually when you leave the hospital, last thing you feel like doing is going back to the, to the doctor to see them. Plus, it overloads the doctors and those things. I think it's going to I really think it's going to cause a lot of problems for the majority of people who use the opioids for pain management.
Thank you. Supervisor Angus, you have some input?
Yeah. Get off later. All right. Well, I'm a little confused about the timing of this resolution because I do, as it's been stated, that the governor's already signed it. The Arizona Opioid Epidemic Act, which received unanimous support in the House and Senate. I believe he did sign it at 11 o'clock. So although I agree for the most part with everything Supervisor Johnson said, it is a huge issue. We've been talking about it. I've been talking about it ad nauseum, about the treatment side of it. The time to have done this would have been last week. Because right now all it really does is it's kind of an afterthought. I don't know about the other supervisors, but I was speaking on a daily basis with our representatives, and they made themselves totally available. We knew what was going on, and I've also been involved with doctors, with the pain management specialists, with lawyers representing the medical community and behavioral health, and they listened to everything we had to say, and I do think that some of the things that were changed and amendments at the last minute did take into consideration what we had. And like Supervisor Bishop, I think there are other ways besides the resolution to make it known. We have been talking, I've been talking to the state about getting a treatment center here, and we've made big strides on that. So I'll be voting no, not because I so much disagree with all of this is a huge issue. Should the government be involved? I don't know, but the final bill pretty much mirrors and puts us into what other states are doing, because it's all going to change again and again, and I think our representatives are there to voice our issues and give us a voice there, and I think they have done a fantastic job. Like I said, every day I was following this and watching it, and they did their job, and I think they did it well. So to do this now would sort of put a black mark on that, and that's the last thing I want to do.
Thank you, Supervisor Angus. Supervisor Wakimoto, do you have comment?
Yes, and I also think that since this is a done deal, and I do agree with a lot of what Supervisor Johnson said, and he has some valid points, but this is a done deal, and I did text our Representative Cobb, and she had also voiced some concerns, so I know that as this moves through, I think they're going to be looking at things that need to be dealt with, but since it's passed unanimously and it's been signed by the governor, I also think that we're a little bit late in doing this resolution and keeping in contact with our representatives and letting them know our concerns, I believe, would be the way to do it now since everything is signed and passed.
Thank you, Supervisor Wakimoto. My comments to the legislation and our resolution are, I agree with Supervisor Johnson very much that our older citizenry shouldn't be hampered by additional laws that make it more difficult for them to seek aid and comfort. I'm reminded of the death of my mother just several years ago and what a terrible tragedy that was as far as the pain that she went through. On the other hand, I've also seen in a family situation where there has been drug abuse, and I see that. So it's a very difficult situation to look at. I don't know that the legislature in their wisdom is stepping forth with an all-encompassing view of this problem. But one of my fears is that the legislature will impact a number of our senior citizens those that have lived many years and fought many battles. And I see the warriors from time to time, and they're limp, and they're stooped over. So I can understand their pain too. Another thing that really I think that we should bring to light, that Mohave County is bordered by the cannabis authorizations through the state of California and Nevada. So my question is, are we going to be driving folks to marijuana or cannabis? It's an interesting situation, but are we too late? And voicing our concerns to the legislature, we very may well be. But Supervisor Johnson, I'd like to say thank you for your bringing this resolution forward.
And I wish I could have brought it sooner, but when they drop a bill Monday night, and they think that's, enough time to, get it out to the public and everything, there's no way that anybody was able to really comment on this. So, or I'd have had it here sooner.
Thank you. Thank you. Would you like to read the resolution, or?
It doesn't seem, Ginny would probably have to read it. It's too small a print for me to read. But it's nothing that says, I think it just shows when Supervisor Wakimoto and Angius are saying it is a done deal, and I agree with that, and that, maybe things will be done. And sure, we can always contact our legislature. I just thought as the board, if we all seem to agree, it's a little stronger when it comes from Mohave County, as said, that we are, would like you to take a look at this to make sure that we don't have, even something as simple as the red caps on bottles. That's just, you're really pointing people out now. That's, that bothers me a lot too, but I don't know if Jenny, if you want to read it, you can. You have such a lovely voice.
If we could have the clerk please read the resolution.
A resolution respectively requesting the governor and the Arizona State Legislature to relook at the Arizona Opioid Epidemic Act that aims to offer solutions for Arizona's opioid crisis. Whereas the Mohave County Board of Supervisors supports the Arizona governor and state legislatures' efforts to fight opioid addiction in the state of Arizona, and whereas opioid addiction includes illegal drugs such as heroin and synthetic fentanyl that has resulted in increased deaths in the state of Arizona, and whereas tougher legislation is needed to fight drug abuse in this state. However, more public and professional input needs to occur because this set of laws focuses more on prescription drugs being used for legitimate chronic pain than it does on illegal or harsher street drugs. And whereas the drug of choice for addicts cycles through every so many years. In the past, the drugs of choice were methamphetamine, cocaine, and now heroin. A new drug of choice could be in circulation by next year. Therefore, any new regulations aimed at legal opioids, such as prescription drugs, should be carefully looked over before passing. And whereas in rural counties, access to doctors is far less than in metropolitan areas such as Phoenix and Tucson, and with the added attention on prescription opioids, doctors are becoming more and more hesitant to prescribe necessary and vital medications needed for the relief of pain and suffering. And whereas we feel the state should take more time to research and look into the effects of this set of laws will have on rural areas, and additional input from doctors and patients should be received to ensure we are not oppressing people's access to these medications who need them to live their daily lives. And whereas we applaud the governor and state legislatures' actions thus far against the state's drug abuse and addiction crisis, however, we want to ensure this set of bills does not harm citizens who have legitimate medical conditions that require treatment, nor those dedicated physicians who care for their patients' daily quality of life. And now, therefore, be it resolved, Mohave County hereby respectfully requests that the governor and the Arizona State Legislature take more time to research and receive public and professional input regarding Arizona's opioid crisis and reconsider some of the provisions of the Arizona Opioid Epidemic Act.
Thank you. Clerk? Chair would entertain a motion.
I brought it forward, so I'd make a motion to approve.
I hear no one else responding to that, but I'll second the motion. And at that point, if there's any further input, do we have any comments from the audience? Okay. Probably the most promising way to register our vote is by roll call.
Supervisor Angius?
This is very difficult because I agree with most everything that was in that resolution. But it's almost like doing what we're accusing the state of doing. I got it this morning, and now we want to speak on behalf of the whole county. So I agree in spirit with this resolution, but I'm going to have no.
Supervisor Johnson?
Yes?
Supervisor Bishop?
I'll be voting no on the resolution, but I'd also like to have some discussion about maybe writing a letter instead of a resolution if the motion doesn't pass. So my vote is no.
Supervisor Wakimoto?
The resolution was very well done, and it speaks to a lot of issues that are very pertinent to our community, but I will vote no.
And Chairman Watson?
Well, looks like I'm on the losing end of this situation along with Supervisor Johnson. But I would like to address the fact that I'd like to thank Supervisor Johnson for bringing this forward. I'm very much in favor of the legislature to take a very second look at this. I'll go ahead and register my vote as a yes, although the item will be defeated. And I see there's no other items for consideration.
Chairman Watson, I'd like to make a motion that we, or the chairman of the board, write a letter to the governor and mention our concerns as written in the resolution, and maybe include a copy of the minutes so that he knows that we had this discussion and we are concerned.
Supervisor Bishop, I think the best way to bring that motion, since it is different from what's been advertised, it was okay to discuss the concerns that we have, but probably is to put it on the next agenda.
Okay.
And bring it forward at that point.
Okay, if Supervisor Johnson wants to do that, then I'd certainly support that.
Maybe agendize it so that a variety of action can be taken, contact for the legislature, a letter to the legislature, maybe a board resolution at that point.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you for your attendance today.
Thank you.